All right, what's up? What's up? Welcome to part 3 of our first podcast number 1 for Team Stronger Together. And the last two sections, the first one is parents. I just labeled it parents. It's parents and guardians. It's for us as parents. It's for young people learning about parents, parents to be. Just, I don't know. It's stuff that I come, like I said at the very beginning of the podcast, I come to every space as a learner. And this part, especially, I have made so many mistakes. I'm parent to a 27-year-old and a 7, 9, and 11-year-old. And I have made countless mistakes, and so this is for me as much as it is for anybody. I just feel like it's an important topic to cover each week, because as I do my care center counseling and my teaching, relationships with parents and guardians it comes up over and over and over again. It's just something that we all can get better at. So let's move on. This is Julie Lythcott-Haims. I had her in the very beginning, just a little short blurb of this. This is her on the Rich Roll podcast. All of their information, as all of the people's information that are contributing to the podcast today all their information will be at the end of this, part 3. So here we go. The second part after the parent part is athletes and performance stuff. All right, so this is Julie Lythcott-Haims. Rich Roll does an amazing job of introducing her, so I don't really need to. So I hope this brings value to you. It has to me. All right, here we go.
I don't know about you, but despite having great parents, despite the privilege of having a world-class education, nobody actually ever taught me how to be an adult. And as a result, I made a ton of avoidable mistakes. I suffered more than I needed to. I fumbled around until eventually I figured a few things out. And I think my personal experience, unfortunately, is all too common. Well, today's guest, Julie Lythcott-Haims, would agree, so she decided to do something about it. Julie is the former Dean of Freshman and Undergraduate Advising at Stanford University, where she also earned her BA, and we were classmates. I first met Julie when we were both 18. She also earned a law degree from Harvard and a master's in fine arts and writing from California College of the Arts. Today, she's an author, and she's an authority on what we now call, in millennial parlance, adulting. Her books include the New York Times bestseller, How to Raise an Adult. She also wrote Real American, which is a beautiful memoir centered on coming to terms with her racial identity. And her latest, and the focus of today's conversation, is called Your Turn, How to Be an Adult, which is a really powerful, beautiful book for those just emerging into the grown-up world. I think it's a must-read handbook for those people. For parents, it's a must-gift for their young adults. And it's a book I very much wish existed when I was young. This one is packed with practical insights for both parents and young people alike. So please hit that subscribe button and enjoy my conversation with Julie Lythcott-Haims. You spent many years as Dean of Freshmen there.
Yeah.
And in that capacity, I can only imagine the the experiences that you had. Not so much dealing with the kids, but having to deal with the parents, which has obviously, of course, informed the books that you've written and given you this perspective on parenting.
Yeah, absolutely. A real surprise, frankly. I got there actually in 98. I left law in 98, became the Associate Dean for Student Affairs at the law school for 2 years, spent a couple years in the president's office, and then said, hey, I think we would be a better place as a world-class research university if we had a tiny office dedicated to the needs of our newest, to the needs of those at the very bottom of the totem pole. And they said, yeah, go give it a try, give you a dilapidated office someone has vacated. I pitched, myself to Apple Computer for some computers and made a go of it. And, our ethos, our philosophy was, we want to be sure everybody's not just admitted, but knows they've been let in. And it really speaks to the potential exclusion of myriad folks who, for whatever reason, don't feel entitled to be in the center of the page. And so to try to lead with a philosophy of, you belong here, you matter to us, you're not a nameless, faceless number, your journey is of relevance to us, your needs matter, we are here to try to be alongside you as you begin to figure yourself out. That was kind of the big picture purpose of what we were doing. And in those years, so this would have been 2002 when I began in that role, we had begun to see on the campus maybe 4 to 6 years earlier, parents doing unusual things, parents, needing to talk to a faculty member about a grade, or parents wanting to register their quote, air quote, child for a class. And in the early years of it, Rich, we giggled. I'd get a call or an email and very politely explain to the parent, I'm sorry, I can't give you your son or daughter's password. We can't give them to third parties. Oh, I'm not a third party. I'm his mom. Well, no, actually you are, or it's too hard, or he's so busy, or she's so busy. And, I'd be polite and respectful and articulate the rules. And then I'd hang up or hit send on the email and go down the hall and find a colleague and relay the story. Like, you're not going to believe this parent, so crazy. And then they really increased in number. So it became less this sort of one-off weird parent you joked about. This would have been the early 2000s. And as the numbers grew, it really became a population of people we had to take seriously and contend with. It was clear that childhood had changed. So parents were arriving differently on campus. They were arriving and staying. They weren't just dropping you off or helping you move in. They felt they had a role to play in the day-to-day management of life, in the life of their child. And I found myself thinking, this child could be in the Marines. But here they are, not putting their lives in danger. They're at a well-resourced university, which you're paying a tremendous amount for them to attend, quite likely. What are you so afraid of, parent? Why is it that you think you need to be the one to have the run-of-the-mill conversation with a faculty member, to get involved if there's a roommate dispute, to attend an overseas studies orientation because you don't think your child can go abroad unless you've had the orientation, so that we know how we can be successful abroad? We listen to we listen to the pronouns changing. It was, we're going abroad. We've gotten into this seminar. So those were some of the changes I noticed. And my job was to root for young people to thrive. And I could see that those who were overmanaged were lacking in agency. And I found myself asking, hey, kid, have you ever made a choice? Have they let you make a choice? Or are you just incredibly good at doing what you're told?
Yeah.
And it saddened me.
Yeah, it produces a certain handicap where the child not only lacks self-efficacy, but that produces lower self-esteem and a lower sense of their own inherent capabilities. And certainly, Stanford is your experience, but this is not, endemic simply to Stanford.
Not at all.
This is a nationwide, if not a global thing.
Absolutely.
That is so fascinating, and I feel like has only continued to metastasize. So the catch-all kind of umbrella phrase for this is helicopter parenting, of course.
Yeah.
Or, the tiger mom phenomenon. What is your sense of how this started and how we got to this situation?
Very interestingly, there were a set of changes happening in this country in the mid-'80s that conspired to, in the aggregate, change all of childhood. So in no particular order, Rich, 5 things. Stranger Danger was born with a made-for-TV movie, Adam, about the abduction and murder of Adam Walsh in 1983. And everybody watched it. There was no internet. All of your entertainment came through the big screen or the small screen or your headphones. Everybody tuned in for that show, and it scared the bejesus out of everybody. So Stranger Danger was born 83.
And then that guy's dad became the host of, what was the show that he did? Where they would
America's Most Wanted.
Exactly.
Yeah, John Walsh, exactly. And missing kids began appearing on milk cartons. And yes, occasionally children were abducted by strangers. And it is, of course, as we know as parents, the most horrific thing we can imagine. And yet, children are more likely to die at the hands of a family member than they are at the hands of a stranger. They're more likely to die as a passenger in a car, yet we drive them in cars constantly to get them to and from their activities. So we reshape childhood around the very, very, very infinitesimal likelihood of a stranger harming our children. And we can really trace that back to that movie, Adam, 1983. The Play Date was born in 1984. Kids used to play with each other. We found each other, right, Rich? It was like, where are the bikes? That's where my friends are. That was a Gen X childhood. That changed. Parents started arranging play with other parents, deciding with whom and when, but also watching over it, hovering, micromanaging. Are they playing with the right things? Are they bored? Let me help them. The self-esteem movement. Give them ribbons and trophies, certificates and awards just for playing soccer or just for swimming rather than for being any good at it. The notion that we need to always praise. Great job, Billy. You slid down the slide. Great job. You didn't hit Jack, you know? A Nation at Risk was published saying American teenagers needed to be, more high achieving vis-a-vis their international counterparts. We needed more testing, more teaching to the test. All of these things meant that childhood was now watched and managed by parents. We also got safer in cars with seatbelt laws and car seat laws and bike helmet laws and bicycles. We got safer in our transportation. It led to this mindset of you can put a helmet on them always. You can bubble wrap every aspect of their environment. Prepare the road for the kid instead of prepare the kid for the road. All of those things happened in the span of 3 to 5 years. The first kids to come to college en masse with parents who couldn't let go in the late 90s were the first to have been subjected to play dates in 1984.
Yeah.
And why does it persist? Because it works, Rich. When you stand next to the rock wall and prevent your kid from falling onto the plastic wood chips, they go unharmed. So you've saved them in that moment. But over the long term, your kid hasn't developed that kinesthetic sense of how their body works or of how to do something different or better next time. So short-term win, long-term loss.
Right. And on top of that, it's all set up within the construct of performance.
Right.
How do I set my kid up to get into the best college? Like that is the ultimate end game.
Right.
And so when you're looking at short-term gains, it's all oriented around academic performance, making sure that they have the appropriate extracurriculars. And the only way to ensure that is this level of over-involvement.
Right.
That, of course, even in the successful cases where a kid ends up at Stanford, that kid ends up knocking on your door, having all kinds of, mental issues or self-esteem issues or, body dysmorphia. I'm sure it shows up in a million different ways where they're handicapped and unable to really figure out how to live and exist and thrive on their own.
That's exactly right. So we've done the thinking for them, the planning for them, the troubleshooting, the fixing, the managing, the handling, all in furtherance of these outcomes we think lead to a successful life. And it's almost like we take our helicopter rotors and we lift them in the helicopter and arrive them at the future we have in mind. And then we can say, look, you've arrived.
Yeah.
You're here. And then the kid is bewildered at the place of arrival because they haven't done the heavy lifting. They've certainly worked hard. It's not to say that kids aren't hardworking in this context, but they've been so overmanaged and overhelped. They really are unfamiliar with their own selves. In my first book, How to Raise an Adult, I call it existential impotence, unfamiliar with the self.
My sense is that there's a pendulum that swings, and that pendulum swings generation to generation, where parents end up parenting in opposition to the way that they were parented to ensure that their kid gets what they feel like they didn't get, right? So if you have the Gen Xers who were the latchkey kids who were completely unattended to, they're going to be the ones who are more likely to show up and overparent. Is that how you feel like it works? Or have we arrived in a situation now where the pendulum is kind of locked in this place where parents are fixated in an unhealthy way on how their kids are doing and performing?
I certainly agree with you that many of us want to parent either the opposite of how we were raised, or we appreciate how we were raised and we want to do it the exact same way. We don't seem to have room for nuance. I want to point out that it was the baby boomers that started the helicopter parenting phenomenon. We Gen Xers inherited it because you're in a community and you see how other parents are doing their kids' homework in the 4th grade and the 7th grade. Well, how are you not going to do your kids' homework? Because you need your kid to keep up, right? So we arrived as parents in an environment where helicopter parenting was already in many communities the norm. And I find it ironic that baby boomers who questioned authority, I mean, that was their bumper sticker when they were young. They were now questioning authority on behalf of their own kids. They had forgotten that they created and matured their own voice by using it. And instead, they sort of treated their own kids like little pets and projects that they would continually question authority on their behalf.
Yeah.
With Gen X, many of us can appreciate the freedoms of that latchkey childhood. Yes, there were examples that were neglectful and harmful, and none of us want to replicate that. But you see in the Gen X memes on social media, the kind of lauding, the pride of look what I was able to do. Look what my childhood entailed. There's pride in that. And I hope that Gen Xers listening will ask themselves, why am I not offering that same degree of freedom to my own child? Why do I want less for them?
The justification that the parent will make is that this is all for the best, all in the best interest of the child. Like, that's all that I care about. I just want to set my kid up for success. But beneath that, what you find is a really unhealthy level of enmeshment, this like projection onto their child that their performance is a reflection of how well the parent parented the kid, right? I grew up in Washington, D.C. That's a community, in upwardly mobile neighborhoods where everybody puts the bumper sticker on the car of the school that the kid goes to. And it's such an unhealthy thing where the parent is so wrapped up in how well the kid does because they want to be able to go to the cocktail party and say this, that, or the other that reflects well on them.
Right. So, I talk about we treat our kids like they're our bonsai trees. The bonsai is such an exquisite creation of the gardener. The gardener decides the direction in which that tree will grow, which branches will be clipped and which will flourish, and the shape of it. And it's a lovely creation, but at the end of the day, it is a possession of the gardener. It's something to be oohed and awed over, and people can come to the gardener and say, look what you've done. Aren't you amazing? And, I'm super clear. And let me say, as a caveat, I have overparented my own two. They are 20 and 22. I am in this both as quote unquote expert and as subject. Okay. We now treat our kids like they're our bonsai trees that, we need them to be glorious so that we can feel better about ourselves. And it's harmful. And it speaks to an unwellness in our psyche, in our spirit. How many of us are devoting countless hours to chauffeuring, concierging, helping with the homework, over-helping, outright doing the homework, planning and fixing and managing our kids' lives, and we have a primary partner over there in the wings, and our relationship with that person is dwindling and diminishing and suffering because we're not watering that plant. Yeah. We're not giving that relationship attention. The very relationship that might have created these children, languishes because we are investing everything in the project that is making these children excellent so that we can feel that we have, the right sort of accolades to boast about at a cocktail party.
Yeah, I think it was in your TED Talk where you said they're not bonsai trees, they're wildflowers.
Yeah. And, that image instantly comes to mind for me of, being out on a trail somewhere in our beautiful California and taking in the majesty of a wild landscape. That's who we humans are. Yes, there's some rules and regulations we all need to abide by in order to play nicely with one another. But there's so much room for variance, for difference. We have, some core things in common, and yet each one of us is this unique, precious thing. I like to, the poet Mary Oliver is very much in my heart as I talk to young people They'll say, how do I tell my parents I don't want to be whatever the parents have decided is the right path, the sort of tiger type? How do I, and I'm trying to incentivize a young person to claim their own agency. And one of the phrases I use is from Mary Oliver, who said in one of her poems, what is it? Tell me, she said, tell me, what is it you plan to do with this one wild, precious life? It is wild. It should be.
Yeah.
It is precious.
And unlike the bonsai tree that requires that pruning and that level of deep involvement, the wildflower's fine on its own. Maybe you got to water it a little bit once in a while, but you walk away from it.
That's right.
And let it do its thing.
Let it become what it is.
And that's terrifying for a lot of parents. And as a parent of 4, I butt up against that as well. I appreciate how you bring your own experiences into your writing and you're very frank about where you've done it right and where you still find yourself, tripping up and repeating patterns that you learn from your parents and how unconscious those impulses can be.
Absolutely. I'm a memoirist. I try to write nonfiction because I believe in the beauty that can come when we can dare to be vulnerable about our lived experience. I know that a deep, profound, meaningful connection with other humans is available when we can open up or when we can pull the facade or mask away and say, you know what? I did this. And I try to tell the truth to the extent I can bear it. There are still plenty of truths I can't yet bear to tell. But I'm only 53. We'll see if I get more years. Who knows? I may write more.
Well, it gives people permission to express or at least contend with their own vulnerabilities. Like if you're creating a space in which, look, I can say this, maybe you can bring to the surface something that you've been repressing or hiding. And I think we need more of that now.
That is so much important information and thought-provoking. And I think it goes back to, am I willing to receive this information and use it? Am I going to use the emotional intelligence skills that allow me to really think hard about how I'm doing as a parent or how I as a young person are perceiving my parents? And one of my biggest things that I've had to get way better at is having difficult conversations. And that's a hard one for me personally. I don't know about you, but that's been a difficult one, and I'm getting better at them. But I don't like saying I wish or I coulda, woulda, all that kind of stuff. But I definitely needed to be better at that earlier on in my parenting life, in just my life in general, man. So that's the first episode of our parenting segment for this podcast. I think it's a good place to start. And each week we'll have different parenting stuff, and then we'll go from there. All right. The last segment of our podcast is for student athletes, for athletes. But once again, it's really performance strategies for everyone. What athletes use to get really good at what they want to get good at, they're the same strategies and skills that we can use in all areas of life. All right. So this first video is LeBron and Phil Jackson and Kobe talking about mental fitness, talking about how really taking care of our mind and strengthening our mind is really, really crucial to both being a great athlete and just having, the right type of success in any area of life that we want to have success. So here we go. Just a couple minutes, and then I'm going to riff off of some other stuff that goes with it. Here we go.
We've always thought of great athletes as the strongest, the fittest, chiseled to perfection. What's a strong body without a sound mind? We're so focused on strength that we forget to strengthen our focus. The mind is like a muscle. The more you train it, the stronger it becomes. And while the greats mastered the body, The greatest mastered the mind.
All right, so I'm stopping it just for a second, just in case you're like listening to this in the car or whatever. You may have recognized that. That's from a Calm advertisement for the app Calm, which is super powerful. I love it. It's not a recommendation for Calm. There's another app called Shine that does equally well as Calm, if that's what you're looking for. Ways to learn how to meditate, how to breath work, all that type of stuff. Super dope. All right. But once again, there's a difference between having the information in your mind of, oh, yeah, that's cool, versus actually doing it. All right. And then not actually just doing it and practicing it, but using it in my life when traffic is bad or when things are not going right or I feel real stress coming at me. That's really where this whole thing matters. It doesn't matter if, oh, I got this app and oh, I practice breath work and no, it's using it. And then the last step um, is being able to share it and teach it, and then keep recycling it, learning more, practicing it, using it, and then sharing it, teaching it. All right, here's the Phil Jackson and Kobe part. I love this part. It's just, all this is an encouragement to gain mental fitness skills, which is really emotional intelligence stuff. All right, here we go. How'd you get NBA players to use mindfulness and meditation?
I never couched it in Zen stuff. You know, I approached it with mindfulness.
Mindfulness, yes.
So we talked about mindfulness as being, you know, as much as we pump iron and we run to build our strength up, we need to build our mental strength up. We need to build our mental strength so we can focus, get one-pointed attention, and so that we can be in concert with one another in times of need. When you come off the court, you had a bad call, things going wrong for you, you sit on the bench, you take a breath, and you reseat yourself, you reset yourself. And you do that through this mindfulness. You just come right back in and collect yourself. So we practiced mindfulness, is what you have to do. But what did stick was meditation. That was always something that was able to stick with these guys.
So powerful.
Yeah.
I meditate every day. And I normally I do it in the mornings, and I do it for about 10 to 15 minutes. And I think it's important because it sets me up for the rest of the day. You know, it helps me. It's like having an anchor. You know, it's if I don't do it, I feel like I'm constantly chasing the day, as opposed to being able to be controlled and dictate the day. Not that you're calling the shots on what comes forward, but the fact that I am set and ready for whatever may come my way. I have a calmness about whatever comes my way, and a poise. And that comes from starting the morning off with meditation.
So you would literally have the guys sit in stillness,
That's right.
meditating.
That's right. Taught them how to hold their hands, where their shoulders had to be, the whole process of being in upright situations so that you're not slouched and you're not going to fall asleep. And they bought into it.
So it says, be centered, be free, which is really the point of meditation and breath work. And I know it seems like it might be so weird, but it's really not. And I'm not that good at it, but I definitely do it in the morning. I definitely do it before I go to sleep. I actually do it a lot while I'm walking. I call it thinkitation, where I'm not worrying. I'm not like listening to something on, in earbuds or whatever. I'm like really like breathing through my nose slowly as possible while I'm walking. And I'm just allowing thoughts to like really come through. And I'm looking for solutions too. So it's not, just absent thinking or whatever. It has some thought to it. But real meditation which I'm trying to get better at, lets the thoughts come in and then you empty them out. Okay, so it's not trying to be absent of stuff. It's just literally, letting your mind calm down. And breath work is such a huge part of it. So why is this even beneficial for athletes? Okay, and once again, when I say athletes, I'm talking to athletes, but it is also beneficial for all of us. So what happens when you're doing meditation? What does it help you do? It helps you focus. Okay, and a number of well-respected research folks and people who work on what's important now towards the future, being able to focus is a huge skill. Okay, and we don't teach how to do it, and we'll work on it during the podcast here at Team Stronger Together. But having the ability to focus, especially in this world of constant 24/7 interruptions, is one of the top skills. You get good at that, you're going to be good at anything. But it obviously helps you on the field or on the court or in the pool or around the track or whatever. Learning how to focus is important. Meditation also helps you cope with pain. Not to the point where you're hurting yourself more. Obviously, you don't want to create injury that's, going to set you back. But just the pain of getting better, the pain of getting in shape, the pain of doing fundamentals over and over again. Those are painful things because they're uncomfortable. But when you are able to focus through breath work, and I know that this is going to pass because it's making me better, those are real skills. Number 3, it helps you deal with fear. We talked about fear earlier. Anytime that you teach your body how to relax, when stressful things come to you, you can tap right into that. Oh, I know how to chill. I know how to deal with that. Number 4, it reduces dwelling on the past. It reduces dwelling on past plays, which is super important as an athlete. It is super important in relationships. It is super important on the job or having a business. All right? It is super important sitting in a math class. Number 5, it reduces stress. And this, number 5 and number 7 go together. Number 7 is it strengthens your immune system. So many of us go through each day in chronic anxiety, okay? But what I mean by that, your heart rate is elevated, your breathing is shallow, and that activates all this stuff, all these chemicals in your body that does not do your immune system good, okay? Our immune system does well when we are able to have proper breathing. Our heart rate and our breathing are working together in a calm way, in a way where, the rest and digest part of our system. All right. That's what's up. That's why we have to practice this stuff. Number 6, it builds the skills of perseverance, of resilience, of not giving up. Perseverance is such a dope skill. All right. And then number 7, as I said, strengthens the immune system. Number 8, it helps stabilize your emotions, which is what Dr. Huberman was talking about earlier in the podcast about. We are a society of such extremes of anger and sadness and hopelessness and just up way this way and way that way. And meditation teaches your body, once again, how, and I keep saying body, we all think this is mind. No, this is, your mind and your body are connected, right? So you have to teach your body how to relax so that your mind can relax. It doesn't really work the other way around. Okay, so it helps stabilize your emotions so that when difficult things come your way or something upsetting or even something like super ecstatic, right? A lot of people make really dumb decisions when they're super ecstatic. All right. Number 9, helps with sleep. Sleep is the number 1 reason why people have, I don't feel good, mental health issues, all of that super tied to sleep. And we'll talk about that in future podcasts. Meditation helps with that. Like I said, I do it for a short amount of time before I go to sleep every night. And then number 10, when you are able to relax your mind, it allows you to see opportunities. All right. And if I can relax my mind to see opportunities, then I have this belief that I can improve. And I'm willing to take criticism better too, which goes back to the social justice part of the podcast, where if I can't regulate my body, if I can't regulate my emotions, if I can't manage them in a productive way, I'm not going to take criticism well. I'm not going to take different points of views. All right. And that goes directly as an athlete to getting better. Okay. If you're not going to sleep well, you're not going to perform well. If your emotions are all over the place, you're not going to perform well. All right. If you don't have perseverance, you're not going to perform well. If you don't have the willingness to take constructive criticism, right, then you're not going to get better and you're not going to perform well. All of this has everything to do with performance, with athletics, with relationships, with, like I said, everything. So I hope that was okay. That's the end of the first podcast. And this is all the social media contact information. Dr. Huberman is Huberman Lab. Julie Lythcott-Haims is J. Lythcott-Haims. Jason Maiden is Jason Maiden. Koya Webb is Koya Webb. Dr. Brene Brown is Brene Brown. Rich Roll is at Rich Roll. His Rich Roll podcast has so many dope episodes. Tom Bilyeu is at Tom Bilyeu, Bilyeau. The Impact Theory podcast again. Sean Stevenson's IG is Sean Model, SHAWNMODEL, and that's the Model Health Show podcast. Mine is We Are Working Together, and I took out the TO for the word together, so we are working, and then the number 2, and then Gether, GETHER, and that's my Gmail account also. So I hope that was dope. I had a good time, and I appreciate y'all. And there we go. All right, talk to you later. Bye. Peace.